Good morning and welcome back. As I'm sure you know, I have been away for a while, and in that time, it seems like the vegan side of YouTube has gotten kind of sparse, which makes me really sad because it's such a valuable way to eat and live. And it got me thinking about the factors that have allowed me to thrive on a vegan diet for the better part of 2 decades. So over the next several weeks, we're going to dedicate the blogs to exploring some of the keys to my success on a long-term vegan diet. And I would really, really love to hear from you guys in the comments about what has allowed you to be successful on a vegan diet long-term. What is it that has helped you thrive and feel healthy and satisfied? But before I dive into my tips for success, I thought a little bit of an origin story would be pertinent and helpful because I very easily could have become one of those "I used to be vegans." So in September of 2025, I celebrated my 16th anniversary of thriving on a vegan diet. But I had started fiddling with dietary change years before that. I experimented with paleo and Weston A. Price style eating, and even dabbled in vegetarianism a couple of times just for the heck of it. And I was fiddling with my diet so much at such a young age because I was really struggling with my health. When I was 15, I started having symptoms like bone-deep fatigue, constantly feeling cold, I gained weight really easily, I had chronic constipation, cystic acne, and persistent sinus infections and colds that were coming up every 2 months. I also had really intense episodes of hypoglycemia, and my cycles were really painful and inconsistent. It was a lot to handle as a 15-year-old, and it took a couple more years for me to actually receive a diagnosis of hypothyroidism. On top of those symptoms, and perhaps causing a lot of them, was the fact that I had been struggling with chronic dieting, binging, and undiagnosed eating disorders since I was 12. It was a really painful, tough time. I would wake up exhausted. I would feed myself the absolute bare minimum, because if I ate any more than 1,500 calories a day, I would rapidly gain weight, which was really starting to pile on. Then I would have to organize my entire day around crippling blood sugar crashes. I would usually make it to the afternoon or evening, I would get home, and then I would have an uncontrollable binge. And of course, sink into self-loathing. I felt so bad for so many years that I genuinely considered ending my life. And the only reason that I didn't is because I had a sliver of hope that some lifestyle change would actually help me to feel better. And the general dietary recommendations of the time were things like the paleo diet, the zone diet, Mediterranean diet, etc., all of which were sold as being quite protein-centric. Make sure you get enough satiating protein. That was the big message in the early and mid-2000s. And like, surprise, surprise, now that we went through the high-fat keto craze, we're circling back again to the protein hype. We live in a world of cyclical lies. Have you noticed? I have. But I digress. In the 2000s, I ate plenty of protein, mostly animal-based, and almost all of it organic and free-range. I also made sure that I got plenty of healthy fats. And I was a good little dieter and did my best to keep the carbohydrates low. But I just ended up feeling worse and worse because I constantly had intolerable cravings for carbohydrates. All day, every day. My starving little brain was obsessed with carbs. And my symptoms kept getting worse, even during the months that I was able to willpower my way through a disciplined, perfect paleo-style diet. So after years of trying trending diets, I eventually found my way to veganism. And at first it seemed like a really good way to restrict calories because, like plant foods are so much lower in calories than animal foods. And I made my first attempt at veganism in 2007 when I was a senior in high school. And I failed miserably because of cravings for meat, cheese, eggs, and sugary dairy products. All of the foods that my body had learned were consistent sources of nourishing calories, which my calorie-deprived body really needed. And I kept up with these dietary experiments, all of which were focused on keeping my calories low so that I could try to manage my ever-increasing weight. Until one day in 2009, I stumbled on a video by Tim Van Orden, who had a channel called Running Raw, I think. And he talked about eating as much carbohydrates as you wanted. He talked about eating plenty of calories from carbohydrates. So needless to say, my curiosity was piqued as my mind was being blown. So I did a little bit more research, which led me to Freely the Banana Girls channel and to Dr. Doug Graham, who wrote the 80-10-10 diet and, as it turns out, isn't actually a doctor. Live and learn. But either way, empowered with this new strategy, I went vegan again, eating a ton of fruit on September 19th, of 2009. And for all the issues that come with that kind of diet, like 100% raw, fruit-based, salt and oil-free, I do have to say it turned my health around real quick. I was eating a ton of carbs, mostly from fruit, very little fat, very little protein. And for the first time in 7 years, I was finally giving my body as many calories as an adult woman's body actually needs to function. And my hypothyroid symptoms vanished. I felt energized for the first time since I was a child. My skin cleared up, I lost weight easily, and finally, I got to feel full and satiated after my meals. And speaking of, I am due a breakfast date with my love. I will pick up from here after breakfast. So once I was on a raw, high fruit, high carb diet, I planned to eat that way for the rest of my life because I was feeling better than I ever had. And that intention is a big reason why I ended up here in Hawaii. I wanted to be close to all of the tropical fruit. And I did end up eating that way, 100% raw, salt and oil-free, just fruits and veggies for 9 months. And during those early months of veganism, I also discovered, much to my horror, the realities of raising animals for food. Insatiable corporate greed prioritizes profits over the pain that these animals endure day in and day out for their entire lives and deaths. And once I knew about that, I could feel in my heart that eating a vegan diet was like the least I could do on their behalf. And of course, the animal agriculture industries are also really burdensome on our environment. And I love our earth so much. She is one of my bestest friends. And so it just makes sense to eat in a way that eases that burden on her. So I wanted to eat that way forever. But as the months went on, I started having stronger and stronger cravings, mostly for salt. And I also started, oh no, how did you get in here? There's a gecko trapped inside. You must be rescued, my friend. Oh, honey, you're so hungry. Oh, my love, I'm so sorry. Oh, okay, I'm gonna let you out. I know you're scared. There you go. The biology nerd in me needs to specify that it was a green anole, not a gecko. Where was I? I was craving salt like crazy, and I started having symptoms of mild mineral deficiencies. My gums were a really light pink color, and my teeth got a bunch of cavities, and my energy wasn't as consistent and high as it had been in the early days of my dietary switch. And because of these constant, intense salt cravings, I started binging again. And eventually those binges evolved into throwing up afterwards too. Full-blown bulimia. And I rapidly gained 50 pounds, which at the time felt like the end of the world. It was another really hard phase for me. And eventually I did manage to get myself out of that binge purge cycle by actually letting myself eat some cooked food for dinner that included some shoyu or miso or other sources of salt. I also did a ton of mindset work with an emphasis on caring for my body as though she were a beloved pet. I committed to non-negotiable nourishment at least 3 times a day, anytime I was the least bit hungry, and focused on a really, really purposeful self-love practice. And part of that was to stop forcing myself to exercise and to actually let my very tired body rest for the first time since she was 13. But at that time, I was still kind of wrapped up in the high-carb, raw food dogma, and I was barely eating any leafy green vegetables. I was barely eating any beans or whole grains or nuts or seeds. But fortunately, because I felt so passionate about health and well-being through lifestyle, I ended up starting my YouTube channel, and I started learning from a much broader range of plant-based experts. And what saved me from failing at my vegan diet was reading the one and only How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger, which is currently celebrating its 10th anniversary. How are we all getting so old? And this book, and its 100 or so pages of references, exposed me to the mountains of data showing that legumes, whole grains, nuts, seeds, leafy greens, and herbs and spices are nutritional powerhouses. And I found myself hungry for their power. And speaking of power, I'm gonna go help my husband for a little bit, build our tiny house, and then I will refuel my power tank with some lunch. I will see you after. Really ought to read that book again. Okay, and that is how I tore my labrum for the 8th time. One thing I didn't want to do was look at caulk marks all over my deck. Is this what you're talking about? Like, here's Lily.
Don't spin around too much, come on. You talk about not wanting to clean up caulk and you got caulk all over your face.
Shut up.
You caulk all over your face.
Here's caulk on me.
That's why we don't get work done.
Shame. I'm ashamed. Wow, we really demolished those baked oats.
Yeah, we did.
There's some leftover chili and some lentils, white potatoes with gravy, vegan gravy, oil-free gravy, and then a kale salad. Everything left over from the last day or two, so put it together really quick, and some fruits. Where'd that apple go?
And here it is.
Oh, perfect. So around 2014, 2015, I started eating a much wider variety of whole plant foods, and it honestly took my digestion a while to get on board. I have always had a lot of stomach pain and digestive issues, which, to be fair, felt a lot better on a high fruit diet, but I just wasn't getting all of the nutrients that my body needed. So I introduced other kinds of foods, and I took it slow, and I was persistent. And over the course of a few months, my digestive system got more up to snuff in terms of breaking down and digesting legumes and nuts and seeds and heartier kind of vegetables. And as I adjusted to eating with Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen top of mind, I started feeling just consistently great. I really easily lost the rest of those 50 pounds that I had gained a few years before. I built muscle mass really easily, and I stopped getting sick with those chronic sinus infections and colds all the time. My hypothyroid and hypoglycemia symptoms also never returned, and my blood tests have consistently looked really great. And as my YouTube channel grew, I felt really inspired to continue exploring plant-based nutrition. I paid a lot of attention to the usual critiques of a vegan diet and did my best to educate myself about how to prevent those. I also watched really closely the health influencer trends that were moving through not just the vegan community on YouTube, but the health and wellness community as a whole. And as I researched all of those, I found that the good non-industry influenced research kept pointing back to similar conclusions. The first is that whole, unprocessed foods are really good for humans. Processed and ultra-processed foods, not so much. The research also shows over and over and over again that plants are really good for humans, even when health influencers make unsubstantiated claims to the contrary. And all of those anti-nutrients that some people rant and rave about, they're not actually scary, and they may actually be nutritional VIPs. You must check out my anti-nutrient series if you haven't already. So once I felt confident in my diet choices and I settled into an easy, consistent groove, I just felt great. And that was 8-9 years ago. And I've just kept going, even though since then life has thrown me some really big, stressful curveballs. This diet and lifestyle is what has helped me maintain the health of my body as I have gone through experiences that very regularly cause major health upsets for a lot of people. And my long-term success on a vegan or plant-based diet is attributable to a few key principles, which I'm going to be exploring in detail over the next several videos. And of course, I will be showing you exactly what and how I eat the whole time. And with that in mind, I'm going to make the journey back to our home that is not currently under construction and get our plant-powered dinner underway. is my beautiful dinner. Let me get that dog hair out of it. I have some potatoes that I pre-boiled last night. I cut up the sweet potato and just didn't put anything on them. But for the regular white potatoes, I made a little mixture of miso, water, a crushed clove of garlic, and diced red onion. Mix that around and then put a mix of chili powder, nutritional yeast, and then mix that up, baked and then broiled them just until they're a little bit crispy on top. They're very, very good. And then I have this beautiful salad of red cabbage, veggies, and a homemade dressing. And then I have some bean burgers. These are soybean burgers, and these are black bean burgers. I usually make a big batch of these once every 3 to 6 months or so, and then just defrost them out of the freezer on busy days like today. And after this beautiful whole plant food dinner, this will be everything that I ate today. All right, my dears. I hope hearing my personal story has been helpful. My first few years of veganism were pretty rocky, and I easily could have become one of those used to be vegans. But I'm really glad that I didn't, because it's one of my greatest values to live a life of integrity, which to me means living in alignment with my moral and ethical beliefs. Animals don't deserve to be tortured and killed because we like the way that they taste. Factory farms and slaughterhouses are, if you can handle my honest, strong, and accurate opinion, are demonic portals that birth hell onto earth. This is not an exaggeration or a misrepresentation. The suffering in these places is inexcusable, no matter how hard we try to excuse it or normalize it or ignore it. I also value my health so deeply. Being alive as a human on this precious earth can be such a gift when we feel well. And so many of us don't feel well. So many of us are suffering through our days because of preventable health problems. I got a taste early on of what it feels like to suffer through life, to be exhausted and in pain day in and day out. And it is a reality that I wouldn't wish on anyone. We all deserve to feel well. We all deserve to feel vital and energetic and at peace in our bodies. And I know so many of us share those desires to be healthy, to be kind, to live in as sustainable a way as possible. So as promised, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be sharing the keys to my success on a long-term vegan or plant-based diet when so many others haven't. Because the world desperately needs more people who feel well by making kind, sustainable choices. And again, if you are celebrating your long-term success on a vegan or plant-based diet, I would love to hear your tips and strategies in the comments below. And until next time, as always, make better choices for your precious self. No one will do it for you. And take really, 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 really good care. Adios! Oh, and before I forget, I must plug Jungle Keepers. They're a really amazing organization who's doing phenomenal work down in the Amazon to actually make a difference in preventing deforestation. I donate to them every month and got these really comfy t-shirts as Christmas presents for my beloveds, including myself, of course, because I know that every dollar I donate to them actually makes a difference. Okay, that's all I have to say about that for now. I think I just tore my labrum again. I'll just do some Reiki on it and hope for the best. The life of a Chihuahua is just so hard, isn't it, Petunia? Started having symptoms like, God dang it, I shall not take the Lord's name in vain. Just gonna throw it like a ninja star.
You went hard on the friggin' raisin.
Well, I ordered 30 pounds of them.
Go back to your hillbilly roots.
Wasn't raised in Appalachia for nothing.
With Lilikoi puree.
Oh, is that supposed to be refrigerated?
It hasn't been, has it?
Not for a year and a half or
God.
so. Are you still a sad Chihuahua?
Would that make you a happier Chihuahua? Oh, there you go, darling. Oh, my little babies.
One of us has to change.